Welcome to episode 72 of the Frenemies podcast. College football today. We haven't done college football in a while. It was rivalry week, hate week. As Ohio State fans here, it was a tough week, especially for Jackson. He's probably the most diehard, him and Hunter. Jackson, I'll give you get 5 to 10 minutes to talk about that game, and then we'll get to the rest of the playoff matchups and how it's all going to work out with championship, conference championship week coming up. Floor is yours, buddy.
Yeah, Jacob. Saturday, one of the worst days of my life, and it's very sad that it's been now 2 Saturdays in a row. When you take the Ohio State job, the job description just has one requirement, and it's beat that team up north. And Ryan Day, in 4 seasons at Ohio State, has a losing record to that team up north. It's inexcusable. Urban Meyer in his career against that team up north, 7-0. He lost big games against Michigan State, Purdue, Iowa, Penn State. Urban Meyer had his fair share of bad losses in the Big Ten regular season. No one in his 7-year career at Ohio State, nobody ever called for his job. You don't know why? 7-0. It's the only requirement at Ohio State. Harbaugh, I won't even say it. Harbaugh at that team up north. He started out 0-5 every year. Calls for his head, even though that was an inferior program for the time. Now he's won 2 in a row, and he's on top of the world. Their season's a success now because they beat Ohio State. That's their only job. They could lose the Big Ten championship. They could lose first round of the playoffs. It doesn't matter. That team up north, their job is complete. They have done their job for the season. And if you're an Ohio State fan, more importantly, if you're on the Ohio State athletic board, you got to decide moving forward, what do you do with Ryan Day? Because there have been a very fair number of people calling for Ryan Day's job. And, you could say that's ludicrous, or you could say it's fair. Ryan Day threw 50 games at Ohio State, 45-5. That's a winning percentage of 900. That's unheard of. Nick Saban, he's just below 900. So a winning clip at 900, it's phenomenal. It's a job well done. But when 2 of those losses in back-to-back seasons are to your arch rival, and it's the biggest rivalry in all of sports, it's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. It cannot happen. Ryan Day has to do a better job getting his team prepared for the game. Ideally, this is like an Alabama-Georgia situation from a year ago. Hopefully, those 2 teams get a rematch in the playoffs. As furious as I am with everything that happened in the Ohio State game, that is still one of the best. That is a top 4 team in the country. And I hope they get another crack at that team up north. But it's an awful job by Ryan Day. Under Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel's tenure at Ohio State, 18 years. 18 years between 2 coaches. They had less losses against that team up north than Ryan Day did. It's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. It is the only job on your contract. You have to beat that team. And Ryan Day, and of the last 4 Ohio State coaches, including himself, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, and interim Luke Fickell, all 3 of them are from Ohio. They all understand the rivalry better than anybody. Ryan Day's not from Ohio. He's an Eastern Coast guy. He did not understand the rivalry, and he's won it too. And it's a failure on Ryan Day's part. He is a failure as a head coach, sadly, right now at Ohio State. And until he gets a winning record against that team up north, he is going to be known as a failure in Columbus.
Yeah, no, Jack nailed a lot of that. One of my biggest takeaways, I was one of the people calling for Ryan Day's head immediately after the game. I said he should have been fired on the field. He shouldn't have been allowed to leave. After a day to think about it, fire, no, but his seat is getting hotter. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care if you're 900. You have to beat that team. Like, that is a team that you just have to beat year in and year out. Like, it's honestly, it's unacceptable. And going into watching that game, it felt like he coached scared. Like, it felt like he wasn't playing to win, which is really, really frustrating. Like, CJ Stroud in that press conference, I felt like CJ Stroud did everything he could. Like, I can't blame a college kid for losing that game. It's not his fault. It's not Stroud's fault. I put it on Day. So I think Ryan Day has to look himself in the mirror and say, and just has to make some changes.
The one thing I didn't like about CJ Stroud's press conference was when asked about the upcoming bowl game, if he would play, he said something like, I'll be able to tell in the weeks to come, and I look forward to going back out there and avenging our loss as a team, even if he's not going to end up playing. And I know it's a huge injury concern, which is a little less now with NIL, especially since he's in the top echelon of earners. But today was brutal. I had to wear a Michigan jersey. It was a child size large. So not only could I not breathe, but I had that disgusting filth on me the entire day. I was not one of the people calling for Ryan Day's head, even though when he was initially hired, I was one of the people that said I'd rather still have Urban Meyer. I don't know why. He's just always been my favorite coach. If Ryan Day goes out and loses again next year, then his seat is really warm to the point where it becomes a must win next year. And if he doesn't win it the year following, if he goes 0-2 these next couple of ones, I think that he's in trouble and he should be fired. So that was really all. They covered it. Just got to be better. It didn't look like a team that prepared 364 days for that game.
I'll just say this. We had 3 unsportsmanlike penalties in that game. They had 0. I think that kind of just tells you the discipline on both teams and how that transpired. I think just looking back at the most successful Ohio State teams the past 10 years, they always had, throwing the ball has always been we produce receivers and use their quarterbacks and throw the ball quite well. But you look at 2014 with Zeke winning the championship, and you look at the period with J.K. Dobbins was carrying the load. We always had a running back you could depend upon to get a lot of yards, and that was a good part of our offense. And this year, it just seemed like, I don't know, we really didn't establish that. And then in this game, we decided this should be the game we're going to run the ball and not throw it deep. And that was your identity all year. So I think it's more of an identity crisis of what our offense is. Because honestly, the defense, second half was horrible, but you take away the 2 mistakes they made in the first half, I think the point total goes down. You go into the half up 2 scores, I think it's better. But yeah, overall, it's just disappointing.
Why was Dallin Hayden not playing?
Oh, Hunter, I had the same question. They started Chip Trainum. Oh, yeah, he's talented, but last year he was a linebacker in the Pac-12, and he had no snaps through the first 11 games of the year. It made no sense why he was carrying the ball as much as he did. Don't get me wrong, he had a good game. He looked fine. But Dallin Hayden the week before had 150 rushing yards. Mayan Williams was the best running back on that roster.
Nice.
I don't understand what Ryan Day's thought process is there. Why Mayan Williams and Dallin Hayden, they're not getting the chunk of the carries. And then same thing, Ryan Day tried, to his credit, he tried to establish a running game, but he tried to establish it on second down and not first. The amount of times in that game, he would throw it on 1st and 10, incompletion, run it on second down and get to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and then we wouldn't know what to do. And we never threw it to Marvin Harrison. He got 2 targets, he caught both balls. The game plan just made no sense offensively. And then defensively, Michigan ran 5 plays, and those 5 plays accounted for 349 yards. The other 55 plays, 180 yards. That's just a ginormous difference. And in games like this, it can't happen. There's no excuse for it, and it cannot happen. And those 5 plays are the difference of your entire season. Those 5 plays don't happen, boom, you're in Indy right now playing Purdue for a conference championship. And now you're going 2 years without one, and Michigan's going to win 2 in a row and go back to the college football playoff.
What's weird to me is I feel like our offense is perfectly suited for you. If you run on first down, you go, especially against Michigan, against really good teams, you can go power run game. You force them to stop you. And then if you get man coverage on the outside against Fleming, Harrison, and Jigba, if he was there, or whatever we have, and our tight end, then you're golden. Because that's what Michigan had. We went to stop the run, and they had man coverage across the board, and they were able to take advantage. If we had man coverage with those receivers, we're scoring constant touchdowns. So I just think there's a lack of offensive strategy that we just got out-tooled with. Carter, is your camera going to be off the rest of the time?
I have no idea. I'm trying to figure it out right now.
I didn't know if you left. All right, so moving away from the Ohio State game, some big games that did happen.
I have a really big game. Auburn, Alabama. You guys can just talk about that. I just had to put it out there.
Okay, well, I was going to finish my thought here really quick. Clemson lost, which helped Ohio State with their chances of getting back in the top 4. So Clemson's out.
LSU as well.
LSU also lost. So both of those things did help. Essentially, what you have is you have 6 teams battling for 4 spots. We can all agree with that, 6 teams, unless someone has a magical 7th team.
No. There's no scenario. It's 6.
So you look at these 6 teams: Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC, Ohio State, and Alabama. Georgia's in no matter what. Michigan's in no matter what, which leaves you 4 teams in 2 spots. Ohio State to get in is going to need either. Okay, do you think the committee would take a 1-loss TCU team or a 1-loss Ohio State team?
I think
1-loss Ohio State team.
I think TCU. I think Ohio State looks like the better team this year, and I think Ohio State should get in over TCU. However, especially if it's close, I don't see a scenario. I think it's a 50-50 shot we get in if TCU loses. Like, I think we need USC to lose for us to be confirmed.
I think it also depends how they lose. If TCU loses by 2-3 scores, then I think you look good. But I don't know, I feel like it also plays a part. Like, the last game the committee sees you play, like, plays a part. And like at that point, we'd be 2 weeks since Ohio State played their game, so it's more in the past. If TCU loses, it's more in the presence. I feel like that plays more of a recency bias with the committee, so I think it would help, like, them losing later than we lost. I don't know.
If we got blown
That
out,
or USC loses.
need USC to lose. USC plays who? Utah, and that was their only loss.
Yeah.
But they're going to take a Pac-12 champ probably. Oh, yeah, easily over Ohio State. Yeah, and you absolutely need Utah to win then if you're an Ohio State fan, I think. I don't see a scenario where Bama gets in. Like, I know people are throwing Bama out there a little bit. There's no way Bama gets in, especially with 2 losses. No way.
It would have to be TCU and USC lose.
Well, then what's the argument to put Bama in over Ohio State? Where is that argument?
No, I'm saying in this scenario, TCU and USC lose, and then Ohio State, Bama both jump in.
Bama would be 4.
TCU and USC goes.
Oh, okay, I got
I'm
you.
going, and that's yeah. And if it's
Man,
the committee, that's why on Tuesday when they release the rankings, it's going to tell you a lot, because you got to look at where Ohio State and Alabama are related to each other and how close Ohio State is to the top 4. It's going to play a huge part on who's going to be that 4th team if there is a loss.
My guess is we're 5. I think we sit at 5.
And then if you sit at 5, then it's just, if TCU loses, then you almost have to go in, because it's not like you can lose and not move down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And TCU's undefeated right now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our loss would look better, but we got blown out is the issue. That's what scares me.
Here's the thing, though. It's not even that we like. It was an 8-point game with like 7 minutes to go, and then once they hit that one big run, we kind of just gave up at the end there. I don't think the committee's looking at it as big of a score differential as the actual final score said. No, Ohio State, they really need Utah to beat USC, and then so let's be real. Those are really the only college football playoff scenarios. It's going to be TCU, USC, or Ohio State, or in some world where USC and TCU both lose, a 2-loss non-conference, Alabama could sneak in there. Because Tennessee's at 7, no shot, and this is AP poll right now. 8, Penn State, no chance. 9, Washington, no chance. 10, Clemson, no chance. This is what I want to talk about. I think this is a very important point, and this is, I think, the future of college football moving forward. It has been now 8 years since the inaugural college football playoff. In those 8 years, I think the college football playoff itself has been a wild success. I think the 4-team playoff is a very good thing. With that said, I think the college football playoff committee is one of the worst things to ever happen for the sport. It is awful. I don't think there are any positives to it. And just looking at it is just a 14-member committee. It's not sports writers. It's not sports journalists. It's not sports analytics. It's none of that. It's not sports forecasters. It is 14 ADs or former ADs or former coaches. There's going to be bias in that. There's money involved all over the place. There's ratings involved all over the place. It is a failed experiment and it needs to end. Like, look, and the AP poll is not much. It doesn't look much better. Look at the AP poll right now. 10-2 Alabama is at 6. 10-2 SEC. 10-2 Tennessee is at 7. Same record. Tennessee has a head-to-head win against Alabama. Penn State is also they're at 8 right now, and they're 10-2. Their 2 losses are 12-0 Michigan and 11-1 Ohio State, and somehow you have Alabama and Tennessee over them. And then LSU is sitting at 9-3. They're number 11 in the country. They are the most overrated team in the country consistently by the committee in the AP poll. They lost their season opener to Florida State, also 9-3. And you could argue Florida State's had a better year and they faced tougher competition than LSU. And Florida State's ranked 3 spots lower than LSU. I mean, all over the place. This committee's an absolute joke. The rankings are a joke. There's no consistency. There's no formula they're following. And it's terrible head to toe. And you really got to consider what's the next move going forward. Because the playoffs are going to expand to 12, whether we like it or not. I hate it. I think it's a terrible idea. Stick to 4. 12 is absurd. If you're going to expand, go to conference champions and then 2 at large. It's just bad all around. So moving forward, I honest to God think you have to go back to the BCS. You have to go back to a formula and statistics-driven rankings because the AP is a joke. It makes no logical sense, and the committee's all biased.
That leads into my hypothetical questions that I always have. So 2 questions. 1, why doesn't Tennessee get in over Alabama if TCU and USC loses? Which I think is just what Jackson just said, the committee thing. And 2, just this is not probable at all. I'm not saying this is going to happen. There's probably a 2% chance this happens. LSU goes to the SEC championship and blows the doors off Georgia. Like I'm talking like 2-3 scores. So now Georgia's a 1-loss non-conference champ. Who gets in? Let's assume TCU wins and USC loses. Who gets in? Well, actually, no. Let's assume TCU, USC both win. Okay. Georgia gets the doors blown off of them. Michigan wins. Who's in?
Michigan's 1.
Okay.
TCU wins.
Yes.
TCU's probably 2.
Okay.
USC's probably 3.
Okay.
And Georgia.
And you said LSU blows the doors off Georgia, but LSU's
Yes.
a 2-loss.
LSU's a 3-loss right now.
It's got to be Georgia. Has to be Georgia.
LSU beats Georgia the same way Michigan just beat Ohio State. You're still taking Georgia over Ohio State?
Yeah.
There's no way Georgia's is not. They have already guaranteed a spot.
I think so,
And
too.
Michigan have guaranteed a spot themselves in the playoff.
Really? That's interesting.
Well,
I wouldn't think twice.
Because Michigan would be the 1 seed, right? And so that would look like a really good loss for Ohio State. But Georgia just lost to the then 11th ranked, which is still a good loss, but not to the 11th seed if Ohio State lost to 1 and it's by the same score.
Still, there's no. I do not see a way where Georgia is put out of the playoff. Like there's no possibility.
That's why I asked the questions. I want your guys' take. I want the answers.
I would say, going back to Jackson's soliloquy that he went on, so you like the playoff, but you don't like how they decide the 4 teams.
Yeah, that's correct.
So in a perfect world, we would use the BCS rankings to determine the top 4 teams.
In a perfect world, No, I think a perfect world is your 4 conference champions and then 2 at large, 16 playoff, 1 and 2 get a bye. I think that's ideal.
I hate that. That's so
We've
disgusting.
talked about. I'm pretty sure we've mentioned expanding the playoff, and you get butthurt about it.
Oh, I am anti-playoff expansion.
You just said dream scenario.
If you have to, no, I'm saying if you have to expand.
Oh,
Sorry, that's
no,
poorly worded
I'm
on
just
my part.
saying. I'm
sorry.
just saying, like,
Dream scenario.
may
for the 4.
expand, we may not expand, no matter what. Like, what your perfect scenario would be?
You're handed controls. What are you doing?
You can't go back to two teams.
I can't go back to 2. Because if I go back to 2, my job is super easy. I'm getting Georgia versus Michigan, the 2 best teams in the country.
Would it not be just top? You keep the playoff format, but then you just use BCS rankings to determine who's the top 4.
Yeah, I think I would, because then that brings statistics into it. That brings a formula into it, and it's just all numbers and analytics. I hate that. How do you hate that? The aspect, it's a failure. You cannot. There's no justification for how bad.
Yes, Miami, Florida, the Hurricanes, early 2000s beat an Oklahoma team that got in to play. It's ridiculous. It's dumb. I agree that I agree the committee's failed. It's definitely not ideal. There needs to be a fix, but it's not going back to the BCS robot area.
That's where I disagree. I think the BCS is a much better alternative than the current committee, because the current committee is nothing but bias. Now, if you want to make an argument like, hey, let's go to the AP poll, that makes more sense than the committee too, because with AP, at least, you are getting sports writers from all across the country. So it's not just 14 people determine the entire postseason landscape. It's an entire broad group of people. And if you want to throw coaches into it too, I think that's fine. I think the more people you can put into this voting process, the better, because it gives you a better, Jake, what's the statistical term Razzo taught us that I'm looking for here? You got more people for like a survey.
More quantity of participants.
I think it's like less statistical variance is what I'm thinking of here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Just 14 people deciding the 4 best teams, and when most of those 14 have ties to these organizations, it's nothing but ridiculous. It's got to change.
I think it worked both ways. I think there's a way where you bring more statistics into it, but there's also like a little bit of the eye test where you look at head to head or something like that.
Eye test has to be a consideration. It has to be.
I don't disagree.
I test in who you play.
I feel like
go ahead, Jake.
I feel like you use the BCS numbers to like get your basic, like your top 25, and you look at it, and then you see, okay, this team beat that team, same record, we'll flip them, and you do. But the basis, like the foundation, is the numbers, and then from there, if there's a drastic change, then you can do some manipulating.
I absolutely love that, because like let me would you guys agree with this? 2 11-1 teams. Okay, same record. One team is ranked 4, one team is ranked 5 according to BCS. The team that's ranked 5 beat the team that is ranked 4 head to head. Would you put the 5 team in over 4, even if the 4 team has looked better in the eye test late in the season?
Yes.
Yeah, we put 5 over 4, correct.
Then I think that's the perfect scenario, because head to head has to matter. Head to head has to matter.
I think it goes BCS first, and if they're close enough, then the first thing you do is head to head. They have the same record, and it's head to head. You give the team that beat the other one a go ahead.
Completely agree with that.
If it's a 1-loss difference, I guess you could see a way. But if they're close enough comparable teams, then head to head should be the first tiebreaker, and you give the team that beat the other one the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take Florida State and LSU for example. But let's put it at, say they're both 10-2 here, and they're battling for that 4th playoff spot. Florida State beat LSU week 1 of the regular season off a missed extra point. And then the rest of the season, they both finished at 10-2. Even though LSU probably looked a little better than Florida State down the stretch, you're still putting in Florida State over LSU, correct?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're on the same page there. That makes perfect sense. I am in complete agreement with that.
Yeah. Look at that. We just solved the college football committee thing in like 20 minutes.
We should be doing all of this.
So if the BCS was still a thing as of yesterday, this is how the rankings would go. At number 1 with a 99.83 score, 0.9983 score, Georgia. At 2, Michigan. with a 0.9508 score, at 3 TCU with a 91.94 score, and then Ohio State is at 4 with an 85.22 score.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Ohio State's played better competition than any team that'll come after them. They've been better than USC, TCU, Alabama, and Tennessee this year.
USC's loss is much worse than Ohio State's. I know Ohio State
Much worse.
I know Ohio State got blown out, but they got blown out by the number 2 team in the country, not by Utah.
Completely agree with
I
you.
would say, well, first Utah is like not bad. Like they're still
No, they're not bad. They're not bad.
Was it in Utah?
They're not Michigan, though.
Was it in Utah?
Yes.
That's also a difficult place to play. I would like to mention just one thing about USC, and we probably should talk about the Heisman, which the front runner now is. Oh my God, what
Caleb Williams.
Yes, thank you, Caleb Williams. Watching him play football is remarkable. Like it was so fun to watch. He just moves around. You can't tackle him, and then he just throws the ball like on a dime. It's by far the Heisman.
His game against Notre Dame, it was extremely similar to when the Chiefs played the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, and Mahomes was running around doing front flips before he threw the passes. Extremely similar to that, except those incompletions in the Super Bowl, those were receptions against Notre Dame. That was one of the best single-game quarterback performances I think I've ever seen in my life from a college football quarterback. And he's not draft eligible.
Yeah, it's incredible. But I can't remember the last time there was a bigger separation. Like I think Stroud was the front runner going into the day, and he was second. And the separation after they both played was so drastic that Stroud is now, I think, 4th in the odds or 5th, and he is like minus 3,000, and by far the favorite to win the Heisman. Incredible! Like he truly did have his Heisman like game and moment.
Yeah, he earned it.
All right. Do we have any other thoughts about college football? Because we are going to mention, we're talking about your school, Jackson, because your school get a special shout out at the end.
They will, but I think there's still a little bit more to go over. There's been a massive change in the coaching landscape of college football.
Oh, yeah, shit, my bad, coaches.
And where do we want to start here? I mean, we can start in the SEC. Auburn fires their coach. They're going to hire Hugh Freeze out of Liberty, their 3rd head coach in their 4th year, and within 4 years. And the whole college football world thought that was Lane Kiffin's job to lose. Lane Kiffin now he just signed an 8-year extension at Ole Miss. He'll be there a while. So we got Hugh Freeze going from Liberty to Auburn, so he's back in the SEC.
Hold on. Thoughts on the War Eagles, Mr. Hebb?
That is a school that you can win a national championship at. I don't think they should have fired Gus. But they did. And as soon as they can find a coach, I think they could be good. I think they had injuries in the young quarterback all year. Does that mean they were a national championship contender like I predicted they would be at this point? No. Was I wrong? Yes. But, I mean, we live and we learn. I'm drastically more upset about my Ohio State prediction being wrong. But I mean, I think once they find a coach that
You think Hugh Freeze is that coach?
I don't know him well enough.
I did. So when I heard about this, I did some research on him. I think he can be. But I don't know, like similar to the Ohio State, it's probably the most similar in college football to the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. You have to understand when you take that job how big it is to beat Alabama. Like Gus was 3-5 against Alabama when Alabama was a walking dynasty, only comparable to the New England Patriots in sports, maybe the Spurs, I guess. So could it be him? Yes. But I think in order for that to be him, he has to prioritize beating Alabama and find players that are going to have chips on their shoulder that are tired of being bullied and only known in that state for Alabama football.
Interesting. I mean, it's an interesting hire for sure. Liberty, no one ever looks at Liberty University and thinks football school. And then look at Hugh Freeze in the last few years. Liberty ranked last year, ranked this year for a little bit. Malik Willis, NFL quarterback, back up to Ryan Tannehill with the Titans. So Hugh Freeze, all things considered, I think he did a really good job with Liberty. He did lose his final game as Liberty head coach 42-7 in New Mexico State. I don't think that's as big a deal as people are making it out to be, just because when you're focused on another job, you're not putting your full focus into your game plan, and things are going to happen. Like we'll look at Lincoln Riley. His last few weeks in Oklahoma, a couple of shocking losses no one really saw coming, and everyone's like, okay, Lincoln Riley might be washed. Goes to USC. He's a game away from going to the college football playoffs in 1 year with a team that was barely over 500 a year ago today. And then Luke Fickell, too, year ago, college football playoffs, the best roster in the history of Cincinnati football, multiple NFL players, multiple first-round picks, and loses the last few games of his tenure at Cincinnati. Everyone's thinking, okay, maybe what's up with Fick? Maybe he's starting to fall off. No, he's at a Power 5 job at Wisconsin, one of the best jobs in the Big Ten, waiting for him. So I don't think the Hugh Freeze loss to New Mexico State is as big a deal as people are making it out to be. I think it's a good hire for Auburn.
Yeah, Jack, I think it's a great point. I think you can also look at Kansas this year. It's reported that the Kansas coach is most likely to be leaving. Ever since it looks like he's decided he's going to be gone, they've lost the past 3 games by like 50 points. So it definitely does play a part. If the coach is leaving, they're not going to play hard.
The one thing that I think is overlooked with all those coaches leaving is the impact on the players. Like in the recruiting process, like you build especially at the Division I high power blue blood level, you develop a relationship with those coaches. And and I'm sure the players feel like it's broken at some point. So I would agree that that's most likely the reason they're getting blown out by 50 in most cases, is because the players just, why play for a guy that's on the way out?
All right, so speaking of guys on the way out, let's go over to the American Conference. Cincinnati, a year ago today, shocked the world. First group of 5, and still the only group of 5 to ever make the college football playoff. Luke Fickell. Huh?
No.
If you said not earned, that's just unequivocally false. That is one of the best turnarounds in maybe college football history. Coach Fick did an unbelievable job with Cincinnati. NFL quarterback, NFL running back, NFL D lineman, NFL cornerbacks, and in fact, you might have the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL right now. Fickell did a phenomenal job with Cincy. Whatever you're going to say, he got them to the playoffs. It was an incredibly good Cincinnati football team. He had job off, not formal, but he could have had the job. Notre Dame, Texas, USC. Those were 3 jobs Fickell probably could have had if he wanted them. Took none of them. Waited a year after the playoffs. Season ends here, and he goes to Wisconsin. Power 5, Big Ten. Luke Fickell's entire career before Cincinnati, Big Ten football. What do you guys make of the move of Fickell to the Badgers?
I think it's huge for Wisconsin. He's going to help Wisconsin a ton. Wisconsin's always, I feel like, been overlooked a little bit in the Big Ten Conference, but they always play a hard physical brand of football, similar to Iowa. They're just more talented than Iowa. I think the Badgers can potentially be back within the next couple of years with Fickell at head coach, because it's going to help recruiting a ton too.
I think the biggest loss there is Ohio State. He used to probably be your safety valve. If you want to let go of Ryan Day, you pick up Fickell, and now he's gone. So now it's you're going to stick with Ryan Day because there's not someone else that you're really going to hire unless you go back with Urban Meyer. But good for Wisconsin.
Can I just throw out something crazy for Ohio State? A crazy possibility for who their next head coach could be.
Is it a former player?
It is.
Is it Brian Hartline?
It is not Brian Hartline.
Stefanski.
Right, guys. No, I don't want Stefanski anywhere near Columbus. Former player. All 3 of you know him.
Don't say it.
Cardell Jones?
Nope.
No, that's disgusting, Jackson.
Carter, who are you?
I hate that.
We're not thinking the same guy. Who are you thinking? Carter, who are you thinking?
Maurice Claret?
No, we're not thinking about Maurice Claret. Not even close. No.
Okay.
I'm shocked. I am shocked none of you guys have picked up on this.
Brad
Pryor.
Sigma.
Nope.
JT
I'll give you something. He did not play in your lifetimes, but all of you know him. You all know him.
Is Woody Hayes still kicking it?
Warren
Woody Hayes,
Sapp?
Woody Hayes died a while ago. Warren Sapp never played at Ohio State.
What does that play in Miami?
This guy is currently a head coach in the NFL.
Mike Vrabel.
Andrew Hall.
Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel at Ohio State would be the perfect next head coach should they let go of Ryan Day.
How would you pry him away?
I think it's extremely simple.
You offer him a shit ton of money.
Not
Did you
even
see
that.
Matt Rule. Matt Rule just went to Nebraska.
Yeah, and he's making a galore of money. Also,
Mhm.
just be honest with me here. What is the bigger brand? The Ohio State University or the Tennessee Titans? What's the bigger
Buckeyes.
brand?
The
the
brand,
Buckeyes.
like money wise, it says the
Either.
Tennessee Titans.
No, either.
I mean-
Either. Titan Stadium's like 50,000. Horseshoe, 110,000.
We're about to fact check.
The bigger brand is the Ohio State Buckeyes. If you were to offer Mike Vrabel a head coaching job, you could give him an 8 to 10 year contract worth over $100 million. Franklin's getting about $80, $90 million. Mel Tucker's getting about $80, $90 million. You could easily offer Mike Vrabel more than that. Ohio State brings in more than both those two programs. Mike Vrabel, also a former player. He knows the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry as well as Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel did. He's an Ohio guy. He's been on the Ohio State coaching staff before. He's played for Ohio State. I think he would be the next hire for Ohio State should Ryan Day be fired or pursue an NFL head coaching job.
The Tennessee Titans are worth $3.5 billion. The Ohio State Buckeyes are worth $1.57 billion. However, I understand the concept you were trying to say.
It's also, Carter, you got to think about this too. Being a collegiate head coach, probably easier than being an NFL head coach because with Mike Vrabel and when you're in Ohio State and you have a brand like Ohio State, recruits just come pouring in, okay?
That's what we should talk about too.
God,
Okay.
Jack, now that you say it, I would love Vrabel at Ohio State. Oh my
How
God.
could you not? With Vrabel, recruiting would be easier for him. He wouldn't have to worry about drafts or trades or the offseason. It'd just be recruits. And how do you not want to play for a guy that's had nothing but a success in the NFL as a head coach? He's a proven guy. He's going to get you to the NFL. And then you look at his time in Tennessee. NFL coaches are smart. When they know their time in the NFL might be on the downfall, they're going to try to get out of there. Derrick Henry, let's be real. He has maybe one more great year next year. Maybe one more after that. He does not have 3 more years in him. He just doesn't. And then Ryan Tannehill, that's been your franchise quarterback your whole career as a head coach. Once Ryan Tannehill's done, you turn to Malik Willis. And if Malik Willis is a failure, it's a 3 to 4 year rebuild. If Vrabel got offered the Ohio State job, I don't think he turns it down.
See,
And then also, hold on, but one last point. People will also say, how are you going to pry an NFL coach away from the NFL to a college football program? Look at the team just north of Ohio State. Jim Harbaugh was in a Super Bowl, was within 5 points of winning a Super Bowl. He is now the head coach at his alma mater. And I guarantee you he's enjoying that more than his time as a San Francisco 49ers head coach.
No, look, Jackson, I would fully like him. Vrabel at Ohio State would be a dream just overall. I think the culture would be perfect. I think offensive defense would be wonderful. I just feel like he loves his job too much in the NFL. You can tell Mike Vrabel loves the NFL environment, and he loves dealing with men. When you're in college, you're dealing with boys. So I don't know if he's going to want to be able to deal with that type of thing.
I think we also need to talk about recruiting a little bit. I don't know. I know Hunter read this. I don't know if you guys did. There's a kid by the name of Luke Hamilton. He goes to Avon High School. He is a massive offensive lineman.
Big country, baby. I used to play baseball with and against him.
Me and Hunter played against him before. And this man, we were probably 12, and this man walks out, and he's 6'4", 220. He went 1 for 5, and the ball he hit was maybe 100 feet over the fence. It was unbelievable. He just committed to Michigan yesterday, and he was recruited by both Michigan and Ohio State. He had some interesting takes on the Ohio State recruiting, especially being an in-state recruit. He said they kind of took me for granted. They thought just their name and offer could get him there. And I think that's interesting because I think that was one of the biggest things with Harbaugh at the beginning. I don't think he got these high-profile guys, and I think that's an adjustment that needs to be made, recruiting on your own, and especially since this is Day's first true head coaching job, I think recruiting needs to be prioritized. And I read a tweet. I'm going to pronounce his first name wrong. Garion Conley, the old
Gary
Ohio State player.
Yeah.
Garion, is that how you say it?
Gary on Conley.
He said that when he was recruited, he was reminded and eventually committed. He was reminded every single week about the game. And I think that needs to be brought back because, like Jack said earlier, it is the only important game. And I think that's, you have to have something besides NIL deals. Everyone knows if you go to Ohio State, you're going to get NFL scouts and you're going to have a chance to go pro if you're an elite guy. But you have to have something else that pulls you in. That's why I'm going there. That's what I want to be a part of.
Carter, real quickly, a disclaimer, I hate Michigan. I hate the program. I hate the brand. I hate the coaches. I hate the city. I hate the fan base. I hate everything about it. They're a bunch of pricks. And what drove me nuts about what you just said and all these reports that came out, Ohio State hosted one of the biggest recruiting weekends in the history of college football during the game. Right after the game, 2 of the recruits at that game committed to Michigan. And Luke Hamilton, he is one of them that has been committed to Michigan since the day of the game. Luke Hamilton does not hold an offer from Ohio State. They never offered him. And the other commit that committed to Michigan, he was a 3-star, lowly touted recruit that was also not offered from Ohio State. So both these Michigan commits, they did not hold offers from Ohio State, and they committed to Michigan right afterwards. It's not as big a deal as the media is hyping it up to be. I just want to clear the air on that because that's what the media does, and they're so poor about it. Neither of those guys.
That wasn't the media. I was reading his direct quotes, what he specifically said.
And this is why I hate Michigan and I hate the recruits. You can go to Luke Hamilton's 247 right now. He's a 4-star recruit. He's the 5th offensive tackle in the state of Ohio. And you can look at his timeline. He has 22 offers. Not a single one of them is Ohio State. So if he talked about having an offer from Ohio State, he lied. He did not have one.
No, it was.
He said he went on a visit, and it just felt like he was put on the back burner.
Braden Walker's been on a visit to Notre Dame. Visits are not that important.
No, he was saying it felt like he wasn't prioritized at all because he thought Ohio State kind of just had him on lock, so they didn't really care about him. And what I would like to say to that is I understand how some people feel. And he's a 4-star, but you have to realize, last year alone, Ohio State got 7 out of the top 10 guys in the state. It's not like we're not getting guys. So until I see this trend, I definitely think the game should be happening more. I get what you're saying.
That's my
agree with that. I completely agree with that. But I think this for Luke Hamilton, for example, he's not one of the top 10 guys in Ohio. There's offensive linemen that are better than him that Ohio State can get. That's why Ohio State didn't care as much, in my opinion. I don't know. No,
that's completely fair. I just think my point in general too is all time we are still losing to Michigan, the all time record, and so I didn't like the complacency. Like last year. Last year, it felt like we just didn't realize that they were an actual good football team, and then this year we said we prepare for 364 days, and it does not look like it at all. And I want it to actually be a legit 364 days.
Yeah, Carter, I agree with the 364 days comment. Let's just put one other thing out there about the all-time record between Ohio State and Michigan. Currently, Michigan leads the all-time series by games. Since the discovery of DNA, Ohio State leads this series. Series started in the 1800s. when Ohio State really didn't even field a football team. I think you can go back to like the sinking of the Titanic. I think that's how far you can go back, and Ohio State has a winning record all time in the series. You can go back in a very substantial amount of time. Michigan started out the series like 10, 11, and 0. And since then, it's been very, very even.
I'm checking it right now. I'm pretty sure right though. 60, 51, 60, 51, and 6. So there have been 117 games played. Michigan has a 9-game lead. To Jack's point, the longest win streak. Well, that's not correct. Was 9 for Michigan, or maybe it is correct because they won in the middle there.
Because we lost in 2011 with Vic.
Right. Okay. So the longest winning streak is 9 for Michigan from 1901 to 1909. The largest victory is for Michigan in 1902, 86-0. So that's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie.
They couldn't even spell football back then. Like we were literally dumb cavemen out there. Like it.
Yeah. But I'm pretty. The first game was in 1897. To Jack's point.
Thank you.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this weekend goes for sure. A lot of big games. A lot on the line.
You guys want to preview any of the conference championships real quick before we end the segment?
Yeah.
Well, let's look at it. Georgia LSU. Is there any scenario LSU wins that football game?
Not really. I mean, there is, but
The only way I guess you could see is that it was last year, right, when Bama beat Georgia in the conference championship game.
Yes.
Georgia already knows they're in some sort of they already know they're in, so they don't play as hard, but I don't know. I would still think Georgia wins.
The only way I can see LSU winning this game is if Georgia gets off to one of their regular season starts. When Georgia prepares for a game, I think they're one of the best teams in college football. When they don't, they're one of the most vulnerable teams. They almost lost to Missouri, and they really struggled against Georgia Tech in their regular season finale. If Georgia comes in ultra prepared, ultra focused, they're fine. They're going to win this game 2-3 scores. If not, watch out for LSU. Michigan, Purdue. Any scenario, the Boilermakers win the Big Ten championship.
God, I hope Purdue pulls what they did against us a couple of years back so badly. That would just make me laugh so hard, but it won't happen.
I think Michigan's O-line is too good.
If Michigan loses, are they still in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only thing I'll say about this game, Purdue have played very solid this year. Their most notable games, probably their regular season loss against Penn State. Purdue looked like a very, very legit football team this year. I think ultra focused, ultra prepared. I think this game's a lot closer than it should be. I think Purdue puts up a very legit fight. I think it's a one-score game at halftime. Now the interesting conference championship games. The only two that matter to any college football fans. TCU, Kansas State. TCU wins are in the playoffs for the first time in program history. What do we think happens TCU, K-State?
It's so hard to not see this TCU team. I'm going to say the same thing about USC, but it's so hard to not see these two teams in the college football playoff this year just because they've been on a roll as of recent, I feel like. USC,
Who do you think's more likely to lose?
USC, I think, is more likely to lose than TCU. But
I fully agree with that.
I think USC is a little bit more vulnerable than TCU has been.
I think USC
and they lost to Utah already, so
That's why I disagree. I think it's really hard to beat someone twice. And I don't see a playmaker on TCU like I do on USC that can get you out of sticky situations in a big time moment. So I think TCU is still likely, but I don't know if Ohio State even gets in.
even if TCU loses,
TCU loses.
If TCU loses, Ohio State's in. I promise you the committee puts Ohio State in over a one-loss TCU. I want to say this about TCU. Take away their first 2 games of the season. They played Colorado, one of the worst teams in Division I football. They beat them by 25. Then they played Tarleton State. The only reason I know Tarleton State is in Texas is because their logo is the state of Texas. They blew them out of the water. So after their little preseason, they beat SMU by 8. Oklahoma's a fraud, so I'm not going to count that game. They only beat Kansas by a touchdown. They only beat Oklahoma State by 3. Oklahoma State has collapsed since that game. They played Kansas State earlier in the year at home, only won by 10. West Virginia only by 10. They beat Texas Tech only by 10. They beat Texas only by 7. They beat Baylor by 1 on a game-winning field goal as time expired. And then they beat Iowa State, one of the worst teams in D1 football. They blew the brakes off them. So if you look at TCU, all of their games are very close. Okay, this is going to be a game that's going to be decided in the fourth quarter. Which team's got the more stamina? And TCU's shown all year they have more stamina than anybody in college football. But the first 3 quarters of this game, it'll be very close. It'll be very tight. Kansas State's going to put up a very legit fight against them, and it's whatever team makes the first mistake in the fourth quarter. I think that team loses that game. That's no walk in the park for TCU. And then looking over at USC Utah. USC's lost 1 game this year. They lost by 1 point at Utah. We had a very similar circumstance last year. Oregon's 1 regular season loss was to Utah. And then they played Utah in the they did. They played Utah twice last year. They then played Utah again in the Pac-12 championship last year. And Utah beat them again. And that sent Utah to the Rose Bowl. And that ended Mario Cristobal's run in Oregon. It is very hard in college football. It is very hard in college football to beat a team twice. Utah did it last year. They might do it again this year. They just, for whatever reason, Utah's just got that way about them. They always have their one opponent that they can just play with. And this year, USC seems to be that opponent. These 2 conference championships, there's no guaranteed winner. In fact, both of these teams could very easily lose.
Jackson, what do you think happens? Say TCU loses by a score, maybe 7 points, and the committee puts TCU in and leaves Ohio State out. What are your thoughts?
We're saying TCU loses.
Yeah.
I think that would be a mistake. I think Ohio State's a better football team, and they have a better chance to beat Georgia, Michigan, and USC. I still don't believe in my heart that Ohio State really deserves to go to the college football playoff. Because I have said this since the beginning of the college football playoff, and I will say this to the end. If you cannot win your conference championship, I do not believe you have earned a right to compete for a national championship. And I'm not gonna go back on my word. I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. I hope Ohio State sneaks in there, but I do not think they deserve to sneak in there. If you cannot win a specific region of the country, you don't deserve to compete for the whole national championship.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, shit. Yeah, hold on. Most importantly, though, we do have a school, MAC championship school in Ohio University in Athens. Jackson, if you would like to talk about your MAC championship, your first year going there.
Oh, Bobby's baby.
And his #1 school.
Yeah, Carter, say what you want. My Ohio Bobcats, they beat Bowling Green, Mackey's champions. We're going to the MAC championship in Detroit this Saturday. We're going to take on the Toledo Rockets. I'm excited. I'm very proud. Last year we went 3-9. We were projected to finish last in the MAC going into this year. I've said this once, I'll say it again. Winning follows me. It just has a way. Wherever I go, winning happens. Very excited. I'm very proud of this team. And there's not one player that I'm proud of. There's not one coach that I'm proud of. There's one man that I am more proud of than anyone in the world that willed this team to the Mackey's championship. If you are an Ohio Bobcat student and you have gone to the games, you know there is one man that is the reason we are where we are today, and that man is Norm. Norm is the greatest leader I may have ever seen in my life. You could put him up there with the likes of George Washington, Ronald Reagan, Abraham Lincoln. Norm is that dude. Jake, you came down to Athens for the OU Bowling Green football game. From an outsider, would you like to explain to the people who Norm is?
Yeah, so Norm is like a 75-year-old man that's been going to these games for like 50 years, and he single-handedly leads the student section. It's honestly incredible. Yeah, whatever Jack's saying is true.
Whenever you're watching action and you hear Peyton Stadium come alive on a Tuesday night, that is because of Norm. That is not because of the players, not because of the coaches. Carter, Norm is what I think you're going to become 50 years from now. If I could ever find a way, and Jake brought this up, if we could ever get Norm on college football game day, or just get him with Lee Corso for an hour and televise it, it would be one of the most entertaining segments in the history of football, maybe television. I've just got nothing but respect for Norm. Leader, genuine, great person, and one of the most electrifying men I've ever met. With all that great things said about Norm, I want to talk about my quarterback, Curtis Rourke. Before the injury, third in the nation in passing yards, had an unbelievable season. He will win MAC Player of the Year. He was phenomenal this year. I want to talk about Wiggles, one of my favorite offensive players. Sam Wiggles, transfer from Ohio State. He's been fantastic this year. He's the Cooper Cup of the MAC. He's just done a great job. And this Bobcat team to start the season, everyone around campus, we all thought they sucked. We looked terrible. My very first game as a Bobcat, I went to watch us play Fordham, not even a D1 school. We gave up 52 points and 340 receiving yards to one wide receiver. Since that game, our defense just flipped the switch, and now we have the best defense in the MAC too. So extremely proud. This is a great football team. Maction on Tuesday night, can't beat it. And it's been a great year to be a Bobcat. Roll Bobbies.
Are you going to the game?
I will not. I got finals coming up, and I'd like to maintain a 3.0 GPA, or at least something a little higher than that. I will be watching in my dorm room, and then I will be watching college football all day. I won't get anything done, but no, I will not be making the trip this year. I'll go next year.
Jackson, congratulations on that big win. What would I like to say that Bowling Green is going bowling. We did get the 6 wins, so we will be hopefully in the Barstool Bowl. Barstool is doing their Arizona Bowl, and we have qualified for that. So, all right, we talked enough action. I think that's it. Anything else from anybody else?
Bowling Green is going bowling. Oh, it's great.
All right.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you later.
Good episode.
It was a good episode. So.